Good morning. Now, over a month since Kenyans went to the ballot to elect their various leaders, and yesterday the swearing in of President William Ruto marked the end of the political season in Kenya. Tens of heads of state, thousands of Kenyans in Kasarani, outside Kasarani, and also millions watching in the comfort of their homes. That culminated into swearing in of Kenya's fifth president. And one evident thing is that the new president actually went straight to work. A number of austerity measures to more or less try and breathe life into the ailing Kenyan economy, and some decrees that he ended up signing executive orders yesterday. That just shows how the president is ready to jumpstart his fifth administration. Now, that will be forming bulk of what we will be discussing today. There are a number of goodies and a number of measures that will be put in place to ensure that the fifth administration will be getting back to work. And Kenyans from all walks of life want one thing in common: the cost of living to come down and the economy. We breathe life into the ailing economy. That will be forming bulk of what we'll be discussing today. My name is Njue. This is KBC News Check, and we are glad that you are watching. We are live from the broadcasting house here in the county of Nairobi, and also on all our social media platform. And to help me drive this conversation, I'm joined by an advocate of the High Court who is also a governance and leadership expert, Wambui Shadrack. Counsel, good morning.
Morning, Njue. It's always a pleasure to be here, and good morning to our viewers back at home and to our listeners.
Thank you so much. And maybe in a nutshell, just to mention some of the things that the president mentioned yesterday, which of course, as I said, that will be forming bulk of what we'll be discussing today. The head of state has had some goodies, as well as some of the things that Kenyans will have to relook carefully. One of the things is the KBC, which is said that, of course, we will be having a look at that education system, and also the fuel subsidies is something that he said that we need to relook at those things, because of course having the fuel subsidy has stretched our budget and actually also eaten into some of the development budget. But we will be putting those figures into perspective. But some of the things that he talked about, he gonna swear. A lot of media houses are writing 6 judges of the appellate court, actually 4 judges, 1 registrar, and one chief magistrate, and also increase the funding to the judiciary. That is something that I'm quite sure the legal fraternity will be keen to look at. Financial autonomy of the police to be executed, a clearing of goods to revert to the port of Mombasa, fuel subsidy and unga subsidy, not a solution, as I had put that. Farmers are going to benefit as we head to the short rains. 1.4 million bags of fertilizer available at a subsidized price of 3,500. That will commence from next week. Nairobi, any person doing business in Nairobi will of course be touched by these 20 new markets to be built in Nairobi City Council. We talked about Hustler Fund to make credit affordable, low-cost housing program aiming at 250,000 units every year. Jokali to provide a customized product for the housing program, and pending bills to be cleared as a matter of priorities. And this will be touching more on the counties, which also have huge numbers when it comes to the pending bills. Allow me now to dig in the conversation, and we will also be joined by Churchill Saoke, who is a leadership and governance expert and also a lecturer at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. Council, first things first, what the head of state talked about yesterday is something that had been lingering all around since the former president Uhuru Kenyatta refused to swear in the 4 judges and the 2 officers of the court. But yesterday, not only did he actually sign that, he also added 2 more judges. These 2 or 4 judges.
Well, Njue, first, at the very outset, let me begin by congratulating the 5th President of the Republic of Kenya and the 2nd Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Remember the old traditions that we had Vice Presidents as opposed to Deputy Presidents. So I pass my felicitations, or rather congratulatory message to the President and his Deputy, Rigathi Gachagua. Now, I also followed keenly. I was watching as the proceedings at Kasarani were going on, and I acknowledge that there was some very good promises that we had as members of the public from the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Ruto, and I agree to some extent that indeed there was some writing on the wall, especially following his declaration as the President-elect on the 15th day of August 2022, and subsequently following the confirmation or the validity of his election as the President on the 5th day of September by the Supreme Court of Kenya. So indeed there was some indication, even prior to his inauguration as the President of the Republic, that he had some serious work to do, and he had deliberately told us that he has set some measures in place to ensure, first, that there is the promotion of the independence of the judiciary, and secondly, there is some deliberate measures that have been put to ensure the promotion of the independence of the National Police Service, the NPS. And of course, he had mentioned even previously that he had contrived some ways by way of executive orders that are going to be made to ensure that we reduce the cost of living as we know of it today. So really, it did not come to me as a shocker that what the promises that he gave previously were confirmed yesterday. No, what indeed was quite surprising to me, and of course, which sits well within me as a practicing advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and of course as a practicing constitutional lawyer, is that the speed at which he resolved to end the previous stalemate that we had between the executive and the judiciary as far as the promotion of the 6 judges is concerned. So that we can clarify to the viewers and to the listeners, is that we have 4 judges of the High Court of Kenya who were elevated 3 years ago by the Judicial Service Commission. But since their elevation, or the recommendation for their elevation to the to the Court of Appeal, there was a stalemate, because the president, the retiring president, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, had a feeling arising from some report that he had received from the National Intelligence Service, the NIS, touching on the credibility, or rather on some of the misconducts, if at all, from some of these judges. And again, I must mention that there was a deputy registrar who also sits in the capacity of a magistrate, by way of assisting judges in discharging their role and responsibilities as judges, who was also elevated to be sitting as a High Court judge. There was also a chief magistrate who was previously, and this is Mheshimiwa Makori, who was previously sitting as the chief magistrate in Mombasa, and subsequently transferred to Kericho, and who was also recommended to be elevated to the High Court. But since the report did not sit very well with those recommendations, the then president, the retiring president Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, had thought that these people did not be fit, or were rather not fit for the elevation to either the High Court or the Court of Appeal. So in a sense, it brought some discomfort, especially in view of what we understand to be the independence of the Constitution, the independence of the judiciary, and the independence of the constitutional commissions that we have. And this, to speak, is the Judicial Service Commission, because it's an independent commission which is charged with the responsibility of ensuring that we employ and we discipline judges and judicial staff as and when the need arises. So really, from where I sit, there is a sense in which I join others in celebrating the quick speed in which the President, Rais Ruto, has moved in ensuring that we have the elevation of these six judges to the position that they were elevated to. So, we must also look back into history. We must look back into what really were the reasons for the president refusing to appoint these judges, as it were. So that even while we jubilate on what has transpired, because I am actually in jubilation, and I'm actually expecting that we will be seeing in a short while the swearing in of these judges as judges of the Court of Appeal and the High Court. But one thing that we must ask ourselves, there was a live question that was being litigated at the Court of Appeal, and this is to what really is the role of the president, or is there a role of the president after the recommendation has been done to him by the Judicial Service Commission on the appointment of people or individuals as judges, either of the High Court, the Court of Appeal. That was the question, the live question.
And indeed, even the president, the new president, talked about it during his campaigns, because indeed it is the Judicial Service Commission that has been mandated to ensure that they give out the right candidates. So, meaning the Judicial Service Commission had already done its due diligence, and not only had they done their due diligence, they had done the interviews, and everything was already completed. But the fact that the head of state back then, 3 years ago, refused to gazette them brings a question, why? And why? Because the law is very clear. The president was supposed to gazette them, but he did not do that.
Yes, indeed, I acknowledge, and that is why I mentioned the live question that is before or was before. I mean, it has already been made moot or for academic purposes. But the question that was asked is whether the president becomes a rubber stamp after the recommendations have been made by the Judicial Service Commission, which I think is a very interesting question that probably, if time will have allowed, we will have also wished to understand from the Court of Appeal, now that the issue had been settled at the High Court. And now, you see, the retired president, Uhuru Kenyatta's refusal to appoint these people is not really my biggest issue here. My biggest issue is, why did he sit on that report? So that should it then have been the responsibility of the president, William Ruto, to now that he's privy now to the information, because he's now the sitting state, he's now the sitting president. Now that he's privy to the information, this privy information that led to the refusal by Uhuru Kenyatta to lead to the appointment of these people, would he, in his capacity now, have channeled the report? Because this is the argument now that is between lawyers.
Yes.
Will he have channeled the report to the Judicial Service Commission, and the Judicial Service Commission having powers either to act on its own motion to recommend for disciplinary proceedings of judges and even magistrates? Will it have now sat well within now law and probably even reason for him to have channeled the report for now the deliberation or recommendation, so that the Judicial Service Commission, sitting as a disciplinary body, looks at the report, and then if there is any sinister question, or if there is any conduct of any judge that has been called to question, then these judges are called upon to respond to those questions. So will it then have been the proper way of going, or will we now continue just jubilating, knowing too well that what is in that report will never be acted upon? We will never know past probably those the reactions from the retiring president of declining to make the recommendation. What is in those reports that forms part of the interesting reading that probably the citizens will want to know?
And I know, as a lawyer, you have so many questions, because at the end of the day, this is something that can replicate, because we do not know if there will be other judges where a sitting president, we are not talking about even Ruto, even in future, where he can sit on that report but not tell Kenyans exactly why I did not assent to this. But indeed, we are waiting for the new judges are actually going to be sworn in today. 2 more Environment and Land Court judges were also gazetted yesterday by the head of state. And allow me now to bring in Dr. Churchill Saoke. I'm quite sure you were following yesterday's inauguration and swearing in keenly. What were your take home?
Thanks, Ben. I think first let me take this opportunity to congratulate the 5th President of the Republic of Kenya for the and also for the people of Kenya for the smooth transition of power for the fourth time. And this is quite a milestone in our democracy. I'm sure that a number of the heads of states who had joined the people of Kenya in the inauguration yesterday must have marveled at who we are as a nation. You know, it was it sort of exhibited the nation as great and the people as mature and our democracy as progressing. And I think this is one of the things that we have to appreciate as a country and continue to work more to build our institutions. You know, there are a lot of things that came into play yesterday, ranging from the speeches of the deputy president and the president and also the colorful nature of the event, of the handing over of the instruments of power and things like that. And I mean, these are things to be proud of as a nation. There are things to be proud of as a nation. Of course, there are a lot of expectation of the new regime. As usual, Kenyans will always be expectant. And you know, it's interesting how when you come in as a new president and when you are leaving as an outgoing president, there is always a big contrast. Yes. But this is always expected in any electoral system.
And looking at still the judiciary and Wamboi, I'm quite sure this is something that will actually fortify the rule of law and also access to justice, just as the CJ has always said. 3 billion shillings additional funding for the judiciary. That is something that's gonna breathe life. There are some court sessions that have not yet been completed. CJ has always said that we indeed are trying to work with what we have. And do you see the new head of state actualizing the judiciary fund just as he promised?
Well, the consolidated fund, the judiciary fund, as you want to mention, I mean, it was already put in place on the first day of July 2022, and this is an acknowledgement that you even heard from the speech made by the head of state, William Ruto, so that it is now water under the bridge. The only point of focus will be whether we are going to have an increase in the fund that has been that goes to that kitty. And one thing that we must recognize is I mean, I must commend Dr. Ruto for at least the kind of step that he has taken, that of mending the relationship between the judiciary and the executive. Remember, we are coming from a past where we had a strained relationship between the executive and the judiciary, and this is largely attributed to some of the very fierce positions or rather robust decisions that the judiciary has been making in the previous past. Recall that in the year 2017, on the first day of September, immediately after the annulment or rather the declaration of the election of President Ruto, President Uhuru then and his deputy Ruto then was invalidated by the Supreme Court, being headed by Emeritus retired Chief Justice Kenani David Maraga. Recall that after the budget of the year 2017-2018, it's the year 2018-2019 budget year, we had I mean the budget allocation for the judiciary was cut almost to half. And this was really a reaction that was this was a reaction following the annulment of the win that the then president had secured with his deputy, who is current president. So and we saw the LSK, the Law Society of Kenya, going to court to push for the nullification of the budget allocation that had been given to the judiciary. And you know, financial autonomy is really at the core of what you will call your independence. And we have seen every time when the judiciary has to rely so much on the executive as far as the budget allocation is concerned, that is where the independence of the judiciary is actually stifled. That is where we have our independence as the judicial or the judiciary as an independent arm of government interfered with. And you will also recognize that from the speech that was made by the President Ruto is that he recognizes that some of the interference we had with the National Police Service, especially from by the executive, was largely due to the financial dependency that the National Police Service has and the financial dependency that the judiciary has been having. Now, giving us the autonomy and also increasing the budget allocation is essentially meant to ensure that the judiciary will be doing as and what it pleases to do, so that it does not have to rely on goodwill. Remember, the English man and woman, and probably Dr. will even say it even better, that he who pays the piper will call the tune. So that right now, if we do not have a judiciary that is so dependent on the executive, it means that we are going to enjoy some level of independence. You've heard the mention of the increase in the number of the small claims courts. These small claims courts are actually meant to address some of the common, the problems that we face as common wananchi, the likes of you and me, the likes of the other hoipolois living in Rongai, in Madare, in other, some of these marginalized areas. The kind of debts that we have, the economic problems that we have, is I lend you 10,000, I lend Daktari 100,000, and Daktari has refused to pay me back. Yes. So that we do not have to go through the vigorous process of commercial courts. We are now to resort to resolving our disputes through the small claims court that have a time frame. They should settle their disputes within 2-3 months. So, and that is provided in law, so that we also open up our economic growth as a country. Because when you have refused to pay back my money, it means I am not going to grow economically as an individual.
Indeed.
Yes.
And Doc, I will still want you to dig into that, because looking at what the head of state said yesterday just shows you how committed he is in making these institutions that Kenyans pay taxes each and every month are quite autonomous. Looking at what he said about the National Police Service and looking at what he's now doing in terms of the judiciary, the 3 billion shillings are going to go a long way, just as Wakili talked about the small claims court, so that we may finish up with what really delays a lot of cases in court, which end up spending a lot of money, and at the end of the day, you don't feel like you have gotten enough justice.
Yes, it's important to analyze this issue from the basis of where we come from as a country. Remember, before the promulgation of the Constitution and prior, even before the second liberation, we used to have institutions that were extremely centralized. And in systems that are centralized, they are prone to personalization and charisma of individuals. And the impact is that patronage then determines the success of any institution in terms of it executing its mandate. So there has been a lot of failures of those kinds of systems, especially in states that have not yet developed in their democracy and the institutionalization of systems and processes. When you look at when we promulgated our Constitution in 2010, those were some of the failures that the Constitution wanted to look at in our national institutions. How do we make our institutions independent to an extent that they can execute their functions irrespective of who is in power? All right? And one of the ways in which you do that is giving institutions their mandate, clearly aligning their mandate and defining their mandate, and after you have defined their mandates, you help them to achieve those mandates by giving them resources. And not just giving them resources, availing these resources in a manner that they can easily be able to get them whenever they need them and account for them once they use them. So this is the basis of creating independent institutions that can execute independent mandates and processes. You have them, you give them independent mandates and give them independence in terms of finances and budgetary allocation. And I think this is where the head of state is coming from. He's trying to read through what our Constitution really, really wanted. And when you look at issues objectively, any independent institution, and I can assure you, Ben, if today you became the head of any institution in this country, be it a parastatal or wherever, your performance will be dependent on the resources and how these resources are availed to you. If these resources are availed to you in a manner that they're availed to you adequately and you can access them whenever you need it, you will perform. And I think this is something that is good news to the courts. They can, and the other thing that the head of state has done politically is that, I have given you everything you need. If you fail, Kenyans will not blame me, they'll blame you.
Yes, and Wakili, we have seen presidents sign an executive order. And maybe you can shed light more on executive orders, because one of the things he did yesterday was to sign an executive order. And one of the things he also talked about during his campaigns was about the port of Mombasa. He said that it's going to be taken back to Mombasa where it initially was, and he was going to sign an executive order on the same. How far can an executive order go, and can it be challenged? Because I'm quite sure a lot has been invested in Naivasha, that's the inland container depot, but now all that is going back to Mombasa. Of course, is a ripple effect, taking from one side and giving to the other side. But that is an executive order. How far can we stretch an executive order to the point that it cannot be challenged in court, or can it be challenged in court?
Well, you see, the office of the president is a creature of the Constitution, so that the president actually swears, and you saw it yesterday when he was lifting the Bible with his right hand, and then placing the left arm on the Constitution, so that we must acknowledge that he borrows his power from the Constitution. Now, the Constitution under Article 140 or thereabout gives, or rather mandates the president to be making the decisions through written directives, so that it is no longer what was called road signs or roadsides declarations. No, we have now moved to a situation or a stage where the president is by law expected, if he's making any directive, to write the directive down, so that when you are called to question as a government officer, having done something that you are saying the president told you, what we'll be telling you is, was there a written directive towards you that told you to do X and to refrain from doing Y, so that you do not necessarily have to say, I was only told orally by the president. Now, we have reduced, and this is just to summarize that, we have reduced the work of the president as far as directions are concerned to be written directions. Now, when you read Article 10 of the Constitution on the national values and principles of governance, it tells us that every time any person, including any state organ, any state authority, is making any decision, is coming up with any policy, as we have seen the president do in the recent declaration that he made yesterday, and the executive orders that he's supposed to sign and the ones that he has signed, is that they must have some grounding in law. It does not necessarily mean that the president is all powerful and is not within the directives of the law. No, the president must do or must give directions that conform to the law as we know of it. And we have seen in the recent past that we have seen executive orders, the executive order transferring functions of the Kenya Meat Commission to the military. That question was taken before the court. To be particular, Justice Anthony Mrima. And Justice Anthony Mrima declared those executive orders to be unconstitutional. So there is nothing that prevents us, if there is any grounding in law, to proceed to court, because the court is the final sayer of what is right and what is wrong, so that the court can declare itself on the correctness, the legality of, or the constitutionality of what has been directed through an executive order. Now, and especially in view of the transfer of the port from Naivasha back to Mombasa, I think this is something that has received some mixed reactions.
Yes.
And these mixed reactions are not without any foundation. in any event, if you were to thoroughly reflect, you know, on one hand, our people living at the coast, of course, you know, were depending so much on those clearing works. You hear kuna wale wanaitwa watu wa kupakia akina kuli. So these are people who relied so much on the port so that they could bring some bread on their table. Now, with the transfer of the functions of, you know, what was happening at the port to Naivasha, it essentially meant two things. Number one, it meant that our brothers and sisters who are relying on the port in Mombasa to get their livelihood, of course, did not you know, that decision did not sit very well with them, because their source of livelihood was actually taken away from them. But now, the people who are living either in Naivasha or around Naivasha also got another opportunity. People who were unemployed before the transfer of these things to Naivasha, then they also got employment. Now, with the retransfer of the functions of the port from Naivasha now back to Mombasa, it essentially means that those people who are benefiting from that Naivasha, you know, what is happening in Naivasha, are not going to be beneficiaries. And that must explain why the mixed reaction is there. But now, there needs to be some, some cost-benefit analysis to be done, so that Kenyans must be persuaded from our economists, not from a populist view, because some of us, as a lawyer, may not be very well, grounded on matters economy. But we must make sense of the economic implications of the decision that has been made by the head of state, President Ruto, so that we need to be guided. Does it cost the taxpayer more by transferring the functions from Mombasa to Naivasha, as opposed to doing everything at the port? Probably from a human perspective, just a hoi polloi and just a reasonable man's perspective, I would think it will be less costly to do everything at the port of Mombasa as opposed to bringing everything to an inland port.
And it's a good thing you brought about that, because, Daktari, perhaps you can chip in. Now there's a lot of money involved. Of course, the people in Mombasa are quite happy that the port is back. In Naivasha, the inland container depot, they're going to talk about, we have been shortchanged. But at the end of the day, the port is going to be taken back to Mombasa, just as the president said. And of course, the financial implication, there's a ripple effect in terms of the money that was spent to make the ICD, that the inland container depot in Naivasha, are now being taken back to Mombasa and just being left. There was an infrastructure that was there already.
Yes, these are policy options that any person in a policy decision-making organ will have to grapple with, and its implications. And I'm sure that you got to look at the legal implications, the implications in terms of trade, and even other relationships that could be bilateral. When you look at the legal implications, one, there are certain agreements that may have been made with certain companies or certain governments as during the construction of this infrastructure. And this kind of pronouncements, then we must ask ourselves, what is going to be the implication of that? Because, it is one thing politically, it makes every sense to return the port to Mombasa. It's going to help people, and people are going to be happy with it. But then at the back end, there were commitments, and I'm sure there are commitments that government made, and what is going to be the financial implications of these commitments? Are we going to be forced to pay certain monies back? So those are things that we might not be privy to, but I'm sure that the policymakers will have to grapple with. The other issues are those relating with the multilateral obligations that may have come as a result of the constructions of these kind of things. Some of these projects were done at very high levels of government, and when you do projects at high levels of government, there are a lot of bilateral engagements that are involved, and so those kind of relationships also will have to be managed. So in as much as it makes a lot of sense to the common man, there are a lot of management of relationships, management of legal obligations that will really need to be dealt with, that are even way beyond the amount of the number of people who are going to lose jobs in Naivasha. The other thing is that, of course, the infrastructure that have already been built, as you have alluded to, that has already been built there, we might then ask ourselves that, are we going to leave it obsolete? Yet huge monies had been invested there. We might need then to find other ways of making it important, because you see, that port was relevant because the SGR was bringing, they used to bring goods from Mombasa to that place. So it means with goods now not being transported to the ICD, it then remains, that line then remains, ideally it remains useless commercially. So we then might ask ourselves, are we going to leave it as an elephant project, or are we going to make another, create another thing, or extend the line so that it becomes useful? So those are the policy decisions that the government really has to think of, so that because you see, one of the things that, and these are things that are expected for any regime, whenever any regime comes, the president and the head of state has to find ways and means of making quick gains on anything that he finds. Like, for example, he got the judges. That's a quick gain, you know. He does directives and it's thrown in and people are happy, you know. The inland pop, that's another quick gain, you know. And there are going to be many other quick gains that will be useful for purposes of just winning the public that, you know, I'm into this game and I'm ready to work.
Yes, and I'm quite sure that is something that has already started generating debate on even social media on the Mombasa port. But still on autonomy, something that has never happened since independence, where the National Police Force or service now is quite independent from the executive, where they will be having, the IG will be the accounting officer. That is something that has never happened. And one of the reasons that they gave, and it was actually in one of the campaigns that they were talking about, and the deputy president did talk about that very passionately yesterday, the use of the criminal justice system to what he said that to weaponize politics, or anybody who is against you politically. But that is not going to happen again. But what does the Constitution say is that the National Police Service is supposed to be under the bracket of the executive. How does this go? How does it transit?
Njue, not quite. The National Police Service is not supposed to be under the executive.
That's what is happening right now.
Yes. You know, that is what is in practice.
Yes,
that is
actually
what
since independence.
Yes. And you see, it's because of the enforcement bit. That is why the police, and they have always been used and misused. And you know, we have brothers and sisters who are serving in the National Police Service, in the KDF, all this. But you see, there is something very novel about our Constitution, especially if you reverse to, or you return and read Article 245. Article 245 gives the autonomy to the National Police Service. Now this independence to be exercised in decision making, so that even while you read, and I am actually part of the lawyers that have been at the center of the interpretation between Article 157(4) of the Constitution and Article 245(4) of the Constitution, because on one hand, you read under Article 157(4) of the Constitution that the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecutions, has power to direct the IG, the Inspector General of Police, to do some investigations when there is some criminal conduct that has been that has arisen somewhere. So and when you read that, you also must read not in isolation but together with Article 245(5)(4) of the Constitution, where the IG, the Inspector General of Police, is given autonomy in his investigations. And in fact, it is, when you read the Express, if you had the Constitution, you will even have highlighted for the benefit of the viewers that the Inspector General of Police should not be directed by any person, including the CS. on the investigation on any particular individual, on any particular offense or offenses. So that he must be given some level of autonomy when it comes to investigations. And I must applaud the President, William Ruto, or especially on this one, that where the financial autonomy or independence of the National Police Service under the leadership of the Inspector General of Police, and to some extent the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, because he responds to the IG, is in a sense meant to professionalize. What he's been saying all along is meant to professionalize the National Police Service, so that we do not have people who are relying on their movements, on their budgets, are relying so heavily on the executive. So that if we need to go somewhere, if we have a course, if we have uniforms that we need to buy, we must please you as the sitting head of state, so that you can give us the uniforms or money to go and buy uniforms. I think that independence is long overdue. We expected of it. And we've been representing clients, especially in these 10 years that we have seen. And we have seen, the use of police is just very historical. You saw it even during the Kibaki, even the Kibaki era. You saw it during the Moi era, when we used to use, and even the Kenyatta era, when they came up with an offense called robbery with violence. And they said that by law, if you are charged with robbery with violence, then you cannot get cash bail. So that people who are political dissents will be arrested and detained, knowing too well that, of course, the trial will not take place within 2 or 3 days. But for the period of time when you will not be enjoying your right to bail, they will be now, forming up some political outfits, organizing and mobilizing, and with an aim of reducing your influence to the populace or to the people. Now, we have seen it. So what the president has done now is just but to rewrite history, to ensure that we do not have the problems that we've been having, to ensure that even him, at a time when he will be experiencing some political dissent, he will not use the National Police Service. He will not use the DCI so that he can settle political scores. So that is a score for me. And that is a score. And perhaps just to return a little on the issue of the Naivasha port, I think the president needs to be advised even more. Because, we have national values, especially on public participation.
Yes. So
that he just became president yesterday, at least officially. So we need to know at what point was there public participation, surely, so that he has now resolved.
Yes, and actually we will be talking about public participation, because it's something that he also raised in terms of how we share resources, in terms of how we work around the government. But now, having an independent and an autonomous NPS, National Police Service, what happens to the CS, Interior, if at all you be having that ministry? Of course, there will be a minister who will be, or cabinet secretary who will be in charge of matter security and perhaps interior and coordination of national government. But at the end of the day, now we'll be having an independent NPS, and we have a CS who will be under the executive. How will that play out? Are we likely perhaps to see some disagreements? Because this is an autonomous body, but we have a CS who is under the executive.
Yes, you see, the expectations of the constitutional design or the framers of the constitution is that we need independent arms of government or independent offices, but working in committee. There must be some level of cooperation, so that if there is some level of disagreement between you, your office, and my office, it must be clearly drawn, so that we are able to identify who has caused this issue. I mean, the disagreements will never leave us alone. They are supposed to be there. In any event, we need to understand that we need to disagree in an agreeable manner, so that we know that our point of departure is this extent to this extent. Really, when you want to reflect very deeply about the future of the CS Interior and the IG, I think they are both meant to work professionally. There are expectations, that the IG has some expectations that I should only do what the law requires me to do. The CAS is just there to ensure that if there are any government functions that need, police, the enforcement or by the police, they need, the security from the police, because the police is essentially meant to ensure that you protect human beings and you protect property.
Yes.
So that if there is any threat to property of any individual, then the CS should be there to coordinate. They should be working together. There should not be a level of who is bigger than the other one. No. So that you are enjoying a constitutional position, I'm equally enjoying a constitutional position. You need to do your work as the law requires. I also need to do my work as the law requires. So that ultimately, if Kenyans, because it is the Kenyans who have employed these people,
yes.
if Kenyans have a question as to what you are doing, if people have some queries as to your level of competence, then it should be measured as against your role and the role that the responsibility that you're discharging as far as the Constitution is concerned.
Yes, and Daktari, let's now look at something that Kenyans were waiting for and a little bit concerned, the cost of living. And today we are expecting EPRA to announce new fuel prices. They might decide perhaps to bring it down, but looking at how things are at the Gulf and also the Ukrainian war, we do not expect a reprieve at the pump. But the president did talk about that, and he said that indeed the fuel subsidy is not tenable. And indeed it is true, looking at what economists are talking about and the money that we've spent. He's talking about if we continue this, we will end up having eaten all the development budget. But at the end of the day, if we are going to scrap off this fuel subsidy, the fuel prices, the pump prices will hit 200 plus, of which that will not be something that Kenyans will welcome, and is not something that will bring the cost of living down.
Yes, Njue, let me before I answer that question, let me just add something onto what my colleague has mentioned about the issues about the balance of power between the CS and the interior if the NPS is well funded and independent. You know, the whole question is about defining mandates and what really are you supposed to do, because when you look at the role of the CS, it should be purely policy at the national level and giving guidelines as to the framework of engagement. Do we need to develop newer amendments that may help the National Police Service to work, and do these things need to be advocated for at the cabinet level or at the or even presented at some other national committees, or do they need more budgets? So I think that their mandates are pretty clear that and if the NPS is strengthened, there will not really be a lot of overlaps. I think the challenge is that we are coming from a past where a CS for Interior was a very strong and powerful person. And the only other challenge that any leader would always deal with and always have to grapple with, and even the powers that be will have to grapple with, is that how do you deal with an extremely powerful security organ? They can be so powerful beyond you. You can empower them until they become too powerful beyond you. So those are issues that any government or any agency will have to be worried about. Now, on to the cost of living, these are really pertinent questions, and the ordinary Kenyans had got very high expectations. They have very high expectations because the platform of discourse, the political discourse in this election was economics. And, each and every politician was coming up with ways in which we can reduce the cost of living and just revamp our economy into the path of progress. So there is very high expectations amongst the public, and I think that the head of state is privy to some of these things. And now the issue is that the people will never really know what it takes to do certain things. Kenyans, and like any other electorate, will ideally be happy when fuel gets to 20 shillings a litre. But how practical it is, It's not practical. So you will find that one of the things that now, when you read through the speech of the head of state, he is trying to, there are certain things that Kenyans are expecting, and some of the things that he had mentioned during his campaign, and he's seeing the systems and how the reality of how things are now. So he has to find a way of managing that, all right? So one of the things that he was already trying to manage is that, you know what, the subsidy is expensive, you know, it's not sustainable. So it means that even if the cost of fuel rises, understand that we have to deal with the question of the unsustainable subsidy.
So more or less, he was telling Kenyans to brace for some tougher times to come as we wait for things to to solidify and life to be a little bit better.
That is what I expect him to do a lot, because campaigns are different from implementation. In campaigns, you'll give all the sweets, but when you get down to implementation, you realize that there is no sweet at all. And you now have to find a way of managing the expectation of the electorate to still get to the point where they still believe you are delivering and you will deliver the promises. But these things, they don't come just one night. They take time. So he's already on the path of trying to manage those expectations and trying to just set foot forward to make things, you know, get Kenyans know that, you know, there are things that need to be done, but it's not going to be done instantly. It's going to take some time, but we need to move into this journey together.
Yes, and talking of the journey together, there is actually the diaspora who really boosted Kenya, and when we came to the COVID-19, they really boosted the Kenyan economy that was really battered by the effects of the pandemic. And talking of the diaspora, we will be, in the next hour, we will be talking to two Kenyans who are, and they were following up keenly on what the president had to talk about. And before, during the pre-election, he talked about making or forming a diaspora ministry on making the diaspora a little bit more prominent in his government. We'll be talking about that in the next couple of minutes. But first things first, let's have that quick break. I'm with Shadrach Komboi, an advocate of the High Court and a constitutional lawyer, and also Churchill Saoke, who is a leadership and governance expert, and also he is a lecturer at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. Let's have that break. On this other side of the break, more discussion.
Daniel Doroidich Arab Moi
Who's this young man?
Regardless of what you think, I'm still the avian king. Even if your father is here, he should still show me respect.
Mother, why did you abandon me and Father? I think you're mistaken.
Really?
Hello there. Good boys gone bad. Eric Omondi has evolved from being a comedian to now being the king of clout chasing.
How does a gospel artist make money?
Jaguar wept again.
Anaweza kuwa celeb
As a follows, but it's a time for artists to make bank. Right?
How is your relationship with Zari, considering that she dates young?
These are accessories. They do not make...
Slap the guy.
Yo, what's up? My name is Ted Josiah.
Much
I'm watching Pop Culture with Adhiambo, with a Y.
Honestly, I didn't even know that Osvaldo was here. It was a complete surprise to me to find him here at the hotel.
We were supposed to meet here in order to get to know each other again and to open up to each other. And now you hide this from me?
He stole your heart and stole my hope of having you by my side. Grandma, why didn't you announce yourself? Why did you just barge in?
So that's why I'm begging you. Please don't look for me again. Please don't ever come near me. Just pretend that I don't exist. If I have to resign, I will, because I don't want to lose my daughter.
Thought I'd react like this. Oh! I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I know we speak. I know we speak.
You serve the Lord, your creator, your celestial maker.
Lele Daniel Doroidich Arab Moi
Just in case you joined in, this is KBC News Check, and we are looking at the full entry of newly sworn-in President Dr. William Ruto. And yesterday, indeed, a lot of Kenyans were following up Kasarani at their homes and also in the diaspora. And talking of diaspora, last year alone, close to 400 billion was wired in by Kenyans living in the diaspora, and these are people that you cannot ignore. They boosted the economy, and especially when we could not rely on tourism because of the pandemic. That said, Dr. William Ruto, during his campaign, he talked about making or forming a diaspora ministry. And now we are joined in by two Kenyans who are living in the United States of America. On your screen is Mary Wachira, who is the President Kenya Diaspora Forum, coming to us live from Seattle in the United States. And we also have Maurice Ndole, who is the Secretary of the Kenya Diaspora Forum, who is joining us from California in the United States. Mary, good evening or good morning there. But hi.
It's yes? Good morning because it's past midnight here.
Oh, yes. Early morning, yes. And you are following keenly on the president's speech yesterday and the whole inauguration. What were your take home yesterday before we delve into the diaspora question?
I think I first congratulate the Dr. William Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, for being the 5th president, and the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua. And actually, whatever I learned from them, they are guys who are ready to work, and we are ready to work with them. Congratulations to them and the First Ladies, and we are ready to move on to the next level.
Mary, before the election, the president had mentioned ensuring that there is a ministry.
I cannot hear you.
Hello, can you hear me now, Mary?
Yes, your sound is very far from me.
All right. We will be trying to fix that as well. But the diaspora could be having its own ministry. I would want to pick your mind on that. Hello, Mary, can you hear me?
Yes, your sound is very far from me.
Okay, I think we need to be looking at that, but let's try it again. I would like to get your sentiments on maybe a diaspora ministry in the offing.
He's asking about the diaspora ministry. What's your take?
Oh, okay. It is a plan because that is what we expected and that is what we were looking for. I think in my last interview, I said that we do not want an office in the office of the president. We want a fully functioning ministry of diaspora. Yes, and actually that is what President Ruto.
Hello, Mary. Hello, Mary.
Yes, I think that is what President Ruto is ready to implement.
My next question is, why a ministry and not perhaps a department within a ministry?
I think you can continue with Morris.
Okay, Morris.
As I do with my...
Yeah.
All right. Morris, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but there's a lot of crosstalk in the studio.
All right, we are working on it.
Navigate.
We are working on it. I would like to get your sentiments in regards to having a ministry of the diaspora. And hello, can you hear me? And why would you want a ministry as opposed to a department within a ministry?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And like Mary, I just want to congratulate the president, Dr. William Ruto, for becoming the 5th president of Kenya. So the diaspora ministry is going to serve Kenya better than a department, because a ministry comes with all the allocations of funds and all the reach that is going to have a meaningful approach, opposed to just having a department, a desk which is under another ministry. So remember, we are talking about a production of at least 400 billion shillings annually. So such an output at the very minimum needs a much more direct approach. That way they can tap into that capability and even enhance it further. So I think the ministry is a best case scenario. This is one way that the government can actually expand opportunity to bring in jobs and create opportunities back in Kenya. And I applaud the government of Dr. Ruto for going that direction. We've been asking for this for many years, and they've promised to do it. I think that's a step in the right direction. It was one of the stronger points in the speech that he gave yesterday in the inaugural speech.
And scaling it to a ministry, of course, it will be having an extended mandate. What are some of the services that you would want to see in the ministry?
What about the party that won?
Dole. I'm saying, what are some...
Can you ask the question again?
Yes. What are some of the services you would want to see in this ministry?
Some of the things we want to see in the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs is putting a system in place where we are going to connect Kenya's diaspora with Kenya. We are hoping that the ministry is going to be a conduit where we will be able to have a knowledge transfer have Kenyans who are going to be licensed both in the countries of adoption and back home. So let's say if somebody is a doctor in the United States, we can also be able to come back to Kenya on vacation and work over there. We can create a bond. One of the things that we talk about is the remittances that people glorify a lot is not even 5% of the amount of revenue that we see. We are looking at an opportunity of enhancing that. We can talk about, let's say the government has out a bond to the diaspora, because one of the things that Dr. Ruto spoke about was he was going to build homes, about 200,000 homes a year. So those 250,000 homes are going to need some investment.
All right.
And the diaspora is a good place to tap into that.
All right, Maurice.
One of the things that I think
Hello,
they
Maurice.
need to also concern themselves with is
kindly let's try and fix. Let's first of all try and fix that sound. That is Maurice Ndole, who is the secretary of the Kenya Diaspora Forum, live from California. Earlier on, we had Mary Wachira, who is the president of the Kenya Diaspora Forum, who was joining us from Seattle in the United States, trying to put into perspective matters diaspora. And remember, the head of state had promised this during the election, and he did talk about that yesterday. But for now, let's cross over to Mombasa. On your screen is my colleague Mwandiga, who give us a feel of the swearing in. Remember, the Mombasa gubernatorial elections came a little bit later, and the governor has not yet been sworn in. And of course, a feel of what President William Ruto talked about yesterday. Mwandiga.
Well, good morning to you, Bentro Njue, coming to you live from Mombasa County. Of course, back behind me is the preparations are in top gear as the county transition team is preparing for tomorrow's swearing in of the incoming second governor of Mombasa County, that is Abdul Samad Sharif Nasir. And I'm here joined by Mr. Job Tumbo, who will just tell us what is on regarding the preparations of tomorrow, who to expect, and the dignitaries who will be joining us here in Mombasa just to oversee this swearing in ceremony. Karibu sana Bwana Tumbo, labda tueleze tu nafasi yako ni gani, and maybe the dignitaries expected to attend here tomorrow. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm the chairperson of the assumption of office of the governor for this big occasion that we're going to have tomorrow. Preparation started close to a month and a half ago. You will recall that the elections were initially scheduled for the 9th, but the ones from Mombasa and Kakamega were since varied to a later date. So we did start alongside all the other 47 counties in Mombasa because it's a statutory requirement that committee is set up 30 days to the elections. As we speak right now, I can confirm to you that indeed preparations are at high gear. We intend to have, we will have the swearing in tomorrow. The function itself takes place between 10 and 2 o'clock as indicated in law. So it's not something that we are creating. We expect the members of the public to be in attendance so that they can witness the swearing in of the second governor of County 001. Yes, a number of dignitaries have been invited, and for purposes of security, I don't think it would be appropriate for me at this point to say who are going to be here and who will not be here. But I want to assure the residents of Mombasa and in Kenya generally that we have a number of governors will be here, members of parliament, other VVIPs, and of course the great people of Mombasa in attendance. It's a big event, as you can see. Preparations are ongoing. We expect to have about 10,000 people filling up this place tomorrow. So nyote mnakaribishwa mje mjione as we transit the government of Hassan Ali Joho to the one that will be led by His Excellency Abdul Samad Sharif Nasir tomorrow morning. Yeah.
So in terms of maybe security arrangements, are you in position to tell us maybe wananchi watarajia kwamba usalama kwa kutosha?
Yes, I mean usalama lazima utakuwa tukianzia na wakati wa kupiga kura. Nafikiri mliona vile watu wa Mombasa walipiga kura kwa amani. Kwa hivyo kesho ni siku ya sherehe. Hakuna sababu yoyote wapige kura kwa amani alafu kesho ndio kusiwe na usalama. Usalama utakuwepo, na swala la usalama we must also appreciate. Kuna usalama ile ambao tunauona, visible security, and there's also invisible security that we cannot talk about. But security has been enhanced, and as you go around you will realize that there are a number of police officers and the different agencies that are helping in the maintenance of security in this particular area. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. That is the chairman of the transition committee from Mombasa County, that Mr. Job Tumbo, bringing us up to speed regarding these preparations which are in top gear. As my cameraman will pan across, will just show you the preparations are in top gear. Of course, top security organs in Mombasa County are also here just to ensure that the preparations are in order, and also ensuring the public in Mombasa that security is all right and there's nothing or whatsoever to fear about. So it's just about preparations about tomorrow, the big day to Mombasa County. As he has put it, Mr. Chairman, is that the Mombasa gubernatorial elections had been postponed twice, and they were really waiting to have a leader just to lead them around. And just as he has said, preparations are in top gear, and we expect several dignitaries to be around here just to be in attendance. Mombasa swears in its second governor. Remember, Ali Hassan Joe just finished his term, and he has served 2 terms as required by the Constitution. And this function tomorrow will be conducted between 10 and 2 a.m. as it is stipulated in the Constitution, between 10 and 2 p.m. as it is required. So that's what is going on at the moment, Ben Troy, and we are expecting come tomorrow we'll be camping here just to bring you up to speed as events unfold. But so far so good, all is well. We're expecting for tomorrow's event, and we'll be here to bring you up to speed as events unfold. Back to you, Ben Troy.
Has been Mwandiga live from Mombasa, and you can see just the final touches in regards to the swearing in of the second Mombasa governor, that is Abdul Swamad Sharif Nasil, that is expected to take place tomorrow as enshrined in law. It has to take place between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. He has talked about that is George Tumbo, the assumption of office chairman, talked about security. They expected about 10,000 Kenyans are expected. He's talked about governors expected there, and also a number of leaders there. And just because of the security reasons, he has not divulged who we do expect, but we expect a colorful and auspicious event tomorrow. We'll be keeping a keen eye on the same to ensure that we know exactly what transpires there as they swear in the second Mombasa governor after Joho did his mandatory 2, has already done the 2 terms, and now we are welcoming a new governor. Let me get back to studio. As we are trying to reach out for our 2 Kenyans who are in Seattle and California to give us a feel on how they feel in matters diaspora, which has been quite a lifesaver in Kenya's economy in the last couple of years. And gentlemen, maybe still on matters diaspora, looking at the 20+ head of state that were here in Kenya, and also looking at how solid and strong our foreign policy is currently is, and even the president did extend some job to the retired President Uhuru Kenyatta, being an envoy in matters Africa, in matters peace.
Well, Njue, to be very honest, you cannot downplay the place of the people living in the diaspora, especially in view of our current constitutional dispensation. Recall that even their participation during elections, which is just but a way of giving them some sense of responsibility in whatever is happening in the country, it is a creation of law so that they can continue being in touch with their families or their country. In other words, it is also to ensure that we also attract foreign currency. Remember, these people are not being paid in Kenya shillings wherever they are. They're being paid in dollars. When we bring these dollars to the current, or we pump these dollars to our economy, then we are more than likely meant to ensure that we grow our economy, as far as also making money available and accessible to all of us. So that if you look at the promises that the president had on the bottom-up approach and the economic approach, really the incorporation and the recognition of the Kenyans living in diaspora goes a long way into feeding into his dream and an ambition of ensuring that we elevate our economy, we ensure that we also ameliorate our living standards as Kenyans and Kenyans who are living abroad. So again, in view of the new job that the retired president has got yesterday. I mean, he's not a man who is going home. So unlike probably what people were thinking. So Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta is still an employee of the government of Kenya. He will be there to ensure that we promote peace within our neighboring countries. You know too well that Kenya has been a fountain of peace. Our countries in South Sudan, our country in probably Uganda, our country in Somalia.
Yes, and let's now cross over to Seattle and California, where we have our two Kenyans, Mary Wachira, who is the president of the Kenya Diaspora Forum, and Maurice Ndole, who is the secretary of the same forum. And Mary, now at least I can hear you. I wanted to pick your mind on what you do expect in the diaspora in terms of the services that that ministry will be touching on.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Again, what are some of the mandates that you would like to see in the ministry?
Let me talk about the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs, what you expect. The Ministry of Diaspora Affairs is also going to some other ministries, like the Ministry of Tourism, the Ministry of, do you call it there, the Ministry of, it's the Ministry of Health, because here we call healthcare, and also the Ministry of Finance. We are also going to help in unemployment, because here creating employment is our figure. If only that we are incorporated in the making of the ministry. Number two, it depends on who will be working or who will be in charge of the ministry. Because if you give it to a person who has not been in diaspora, if you give it to a person who has no knowledge of what is happening here, if you give it to a person who came back home a long time ago, like 10 years ago, then it's not going to be well, because they are not knowledgeable of what's going on here. Number two, we need somebody who has been a community leader, been engaged with diasporians in helping them, maybe with the simple things of maybe shipping a body back home, or helping somebody who has been in jail. So it depends on who the president, Dr. Ruto, gives it to as the leader of the ministry, and the employees who are going to be in the ministry. Troy, something to be careful about is that as we in diaspora, we are more knowledgeable, we cannot be corrupted, we cannot be misled. So if we find that it's not working the way we want, then we shut off. That's exactly what we. So it depends on whatever background is going to have. So he has to involve us. He to involve the knowledgeable people who have been in the community. He has to involve the pastors, maybe the people who, because that is the only gathering that people in diaspora have, where they go to church. So he has to get this knowledge from us so that he knows what kind of thing that we expect from him.
Indeed, Mary, and now let me cross over to Maurice. Maurice, before we had that technical issue, you are also fortifying what Mary has talked about in terms of what you would love to see or like to see if indeed that diaspora ministry is formed by the president.
Yeah, I do agree with what Mary's saying. I think I have the Dr. Ruto make this proclamation come because we've been clamoring for many years. And I also looking for also including the KBC. Back to the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs, I think this can be bring income for because with one stroke to expand the economy, create an between diaspora, putting have diaspora investing even much more confident because now they're going to have an outreach right next. So it's a very.
All right, we seem to be experiencing a technical issue there. That has been Maurice Ndole live from Seattle. Mary, can you still hear me? Hello, Mary? All right. The diaspora, as we try to get back to the United States. I would like to pick your mind on the same. 400 billion every year, and they only vote for the president, and not in all states, but they cannot be ignored.
Yes, the diaspora is a very huge potential for any particular country for many ways, and some of it has been highlighted by the Mary and Ndeto. And when you look at issues of foreign direct investment, trying to help the country to attract FDIs into the country, issues around trade, you look at aspects of even knowledge transfer. They got knowledge, they are exposed, and they are able to even create exchanges that bring skills into the country. You look at even other aspects of helping the country to create mechanisms of spurring business and entrepreneurship. These are entry points that they can get into. The other aspects are ambassadorial roles, that not necessarily what I mean by diplomatic roles, but ambassadorial roles that could be of significance to the country's tourism as part of building the tourism sector. So these are things that the diaspora could be of help in, and I think that it is important that even as we establish this kind of ministry, for the country not to look at it from a one side. We need to look at it dual, look at what are the diaspora going to do for us and what can we be able to do for the diaspora. Because sometimes, I was once, I have had the privilege of leading an alumni, being a director of an alumni directorate. And one of the things that I experienced is that, the moment you put people to begin to see that it is them to give and not you to give, then they keep back. And I think that is one of the things that the country will need to reflect on. Okay. It becomes a double side.
Let's first of all cross over to California. Maurice, now you can hear me. My question was 400 billion. You just cannot be ignored. 400 billion each year. And we are talking about election. You can only vote for your president, and it's not on all the 50 plus states. Maurice?
Yeah, so that's another issue we've been clamoring for, and I'm really glad you brought it up because the president brought it up as well, unprompted. So if we can streamline that, the IBC can maybe make an online voting process and just do a continuous voting exercise that ensures that voting is done seamlessly in areas where people are, and they don't have to travel miles and miles and paying a lot of money to vote. That would help. It would involve a lot of Kenyans. It would also help in making sure that Kenyans are engaged in a way that we don't lose the remittances that we already have in place, because the next generation, we don't know what they're going to do. So we also have to have other avenues that we are looking at. The Ministry of Diaspora Affairs can help the Ministry of Sports. We have our youth who are looking for opportunities abroad. It could be a way for us to get in touch with them, because we know the communities. Our kids are going to these sporting activities. We know the coaches who are looking for players. We know the teams that are looking for players. We also know all these orchestras that are looking for musicians and stuff. So it's a wide open market. It's just one of those big things that I don't know why we never did this sooner, but this is one big opportunity that can bring so much good to Kenya.
In a lot of foreign currency, which is quite helpful to the Kenyan economy. Would you want to see perhaps a parliamentary committee on diaspora affairs as well?
Oh yeah, a parliamentary committee with a clear mandate of what they're going to do would be helpful. I mean, I'm not suggesting this. I think Dr. Ruto alluded to this. He alluded to having a representation in parliament. That is welcome as well, because the more representation we have of good people, I'm not talking about representation from cronies who are being rewarded with a diaspora position because they are friends to the president or friends to the vice president. They need to bring competent people. If this is gonna work, it has to be done right. So parliamentary select committee, which is going to fact find, is going to involve people like us who have actually done the work. I was involved in the diaspora policy paper, which we have ready to go. If Dr. Ruto wants to involve us in writing that, we are more than welcome to help to see what we put in place, and which can kind of speed up the things that they're already trying to do. So it is an exciting moment for us. The possibilities are out there. I don't even know what to say at this point. I think it's a very, very good thing that is way long overdue.
And maybe perhaps we can hear, Mary, as well, your sentiments on the same, because when it comes to electoral matters, you are kind of sidelined because you cannot vote in in any state that you have to go travel long distances to vote, but at the end of the day you can only vote for your president. I would like to pick your sentiments in regards to the election process as regards to Kenyans living in the diaspora.
Yes, Troy. I think I spoke in this channel about being added some consulates in the most densely populated areas where we have more Kenyans. That is the only way we can be able to register, or a desk from the consulate being brought like somewhere in Seattle, so that we can be able to register. And also in other areas like the Arab countries, and also like somewhere they did not even do voting, like Australia. So the reason, I hope you know that I was running in Tetu, and I'll tell you why. The reason why I decided to run is so that I can be able to represent Tetu and also bring the issues of diaspora to Parliament, so that we remove those clauses of diaspora not having representation in Parliament or in Senate. Now, it's not about representation, because Troy, yeah, we are paid much, we are paid per hour, but we want to bring the diaspora, we want to bring United States, we want to bring UK, we want to bring Dubai or anywhere else in the world closer at the right doorstep of the Kenyan government. What are we bringing in? We are bringing in exchange, we are bringing in tourism, we are bringing in dollars. You know, and maybe I think that is an oversight, or somebody did not know what diaspora has for Kenya. Let me talk about where I live in Washington. We have a doctor, somebody, I am not going to name him, who works in a Tacoma General Hospital, who is a cancer specialist. If that doctor, somebody is given a chance to talk to the doctors in Kenya, they'll know the cure for cancer, because cancer is not a big deal here. HIV is not a big deal here. And then we have like sports, like Morris said, we have a team here of Kenyan boys called Umoja FC. I would like the boys in Tetu to come and have an exchange. I would like the boys in Tetu to come and have a match. And from that match, they are given scholarships to go into one of the best universities here, because people in Kenya, they are competent. When we have them in school here, even small kids, they outdo the others. And so I was wondering, what is it that it is done here that we don't? Because our kids are doing so well, but when it comes to implementing, we are not able to deliver. We are not able to implement. And we are ready also to have the talent and the talented, to have those people who are talented to come and have an exchange program here. I've been in one of the churches being a leader, and I am one person. If the singers there, the people who sing gospel music, see me, they know what I'm talking about, because I've been sending them out of state to go and perform there, and they go back with dollars. That is what we are talking about. We are ready to bring it to the doorstep of Kenyan government. If Dr. Ruto is ready to work with us, those who are in Azimio and those who are in UDA.
And Maurice, you talked about legislation, and talking about legislation and diaspora, I will take you to something that happened a couple of weeks ago, where we saw a young Kenyan lady who was duped into a job in the Gulf, and unfortunately she was quite mistreated, and the government had to pool resources to ensure that that Kenyan is brought back. And indeed, we had these cases each and every year, but we have seen that Kenyans are still trooping to the Gulf and other countries, but the issue of mistreatment has always surfaced. And I'm quite sure as the diaspora is something that you also have noted. Indeed, we've heard of cases in the Gulf. Perhaps there are some cases in other countries. So how would you want the diaspora in terms of legislation for Kenyans who go to seek greener pastures, even in the US?
Did you lose Ben Troy? Ben Troy, did we lose you?
Oh, okay. Mary, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Okay. So,
all right. Maurice, I was talking about legislation in terms of Kenyans who go abroad to seek for greener pastures. We have seen some Kenyans being mistreated, but they have to be a legislation, because this cannot go on. And unfortunately, these Kenyans are duped by own Kenyan agencies. So what would you want in terms of legislation for Kenyans who go abroad to look for work, not only in the Gulf, but also maybe in the US?
Yeah, that issue makes my blood boil. It is very upsetting to see a Kenyan agency setting another Kenyan to go out to be treated like a slave. Okay? So the Kenyan government has to put laws. One of the things that in the inaugural speech that Dr. Ruto gave is he talked about all these plans that he has, but then they are all going to be proclamation if there's no laws behind it. So we have to put in place laws of how recruiting happens. How do you recruit? What are the requirements for a recruiter to have to guarantee that the job that you're recruiting somebody to go and do in the Middle East is exactly what you're going to do? Because there have been cases where somebody has been told they're going to do a professional job only to find themselves becoming a maid or becoming a house help. Okay, nothing wrong with becoming a maid. If you're told you're going to become a nurse and then you find yourself being a house help, it's a very difficult situation to adjust to. So we need to have laws which are going to put it upon the recruiters to make sure that whatever it is they're signing up for the young ladies and the young men to go into these countries is exactly what they're going to have. The Ministry of Diaspora Affairs can play a role in that. So we can play a role of actually setting the standard of this is what the standard is. Okay, for somebody to come into Saudi Arabia, we're going to make sure that this is what we're going to do, and we're going to give them the orientation of how to navigate every new things over there. If they have trouble, where they're going to go, because the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs is going to be connected to the community already. So legislation is going to be important to make sure that we have rules that these recruiters have to follow with penalties. A recruiter who is going to recruit somebody and goes out and finds that he was duped into something that was not what they were promised to be should lose their license to operate and should face jail time with fines. And these are things we should be enforcing. They cannot break their way out of it. So those kind of rules are going to be important to bring sanity into this industry, because we have unemployment. So if Kenyans are seeking greener pastures somewhere, that's a good thing. We should encourage that, but they should not suffer. And this is not just an issue for Kenya. Other African countries have found themselves in trouble in places like Libya, where they go over there and then they're captured by people who are actually engaging in slave trade. And yes, I said slave trade in 2022. So we have some issues that we have to deal with. Kenya is a very advanced African country compared to others. We should not be having problems like that at this point. We can put legislation in place to protect our people out there, and the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs, if it comes to fruition and we can help in enhancing that.
Yes, and Mary, being the chairman of the Diaspora Forum, I would like to pick your mind on the same, because just as Maurice talking about, we are having more or less like slave in the year 2022. How would you like the diaspora in terms of the work that Kenyans go out to seek greener pastures? And from the look of things, you two are in green pastures, quite green. But unfortunately, some Kenyans have not tasted that green pasture. And as we have seen, we have issues when it comes to Kenyans seeking greener pastures, and especially in the Gulf nations.
Yeah, I hope I'll be able to tell you more about this, because it has been a concern to me. Number one, people going out of the country need protection, not only protection from the government, but from the agencies that take them to the said countries. There are other things that can be done, penalties. If your agency is found not to be competent, then you pay a heavy penalty to the government. But again, to which government? Kenya has been operating on a broken system. I hope Dr. Ruto, President, Rigathi Gachagua are going to start with fixing the system, because once you fix the system, I think I talked about this before, the system is the one that throws you out of the system, not the person throwing the system out and leaving themselves doing what they want. So first of all is to fix the system. The system means that if you take somebody to Saudi Arabia and they are mistreated and you are dealing with the same employers, then your license is cancelled. And when your license is cancelled, you work very hard to get your license back, because it is the same case that happens here in the United States. Let me talk about something that you don't know about United States, and maybe you know, but it has not been highlighted, about United States and the UK. I have been a leader in the community, and we've been struggling with these people who have been going through deportation. And one thing that we discovered is that the President of the Republic of Kenya signed with the United States government to deport people who are found on the wrong side of the law. Now, the wrong side of the law in a foreign country where there is racism, you might be found guilty out of racism. Don't forget that. And one thing that we have found out from the people who have been deported is that maybe somebody did not even do it, but they were discriminated. And yet, when you go to the immigration, when you go to ICE, when you go to USICS, they say that your president signed that. We want to know who signed. Is it Uhuru Kenyatta? Is it Mwai Kibaki, president? And Dr. Ruto has to deal with that. You don't have to be intimidated by the Western countries to sign something like that, just to get aid or something like that. You have to protect your people. Okay. If somebody in America is arrested in Kenya, they make sure they come to try him in this country, United States. Why not the same? Why are you letting your people be tried in a foreign country? You have to protect your people. And protecting your people is aligning the system and not be manipulated by the Western countries.
All right, thank you indeed, Mary. But before I let you go, ladies and gentlemen, let me pick your last sentiment, your clarion call to the new President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. Ruto, in regards to the diaspora? Maurice?
So what I would encourage Dr. Ruto in regards to the diaspora is engage with the diaspora directly. When you put together those committees, the parliamentary committee, have those parliamentary committees to work with the people in the diaspora who have actually started, who have done the work, who have already created the policy. We have created a big policy paper on that in our organization, and I've worked with other organizations as well. So work with us so that we come up with a policy that is actually organic from us, that is going to be is going to make sense to Kenya and give you the benefits that is going to be meaningful to both the people, the Kenyans, the diaspora, and Kenyans back at home. Our goal is to make sure that Kenya grows better, Kenya brings in other streams of income, expands the economy, and become the jewel of Africa that it can be.
Thank you indeed, Maurice. Your final comments, Mary?
I would like the president to be able to work with us from all countries. We are divided. We have United States, we have Europe, we have Asia, we have Africa, and maybe we have Australia. And he should be able to work with people from all those places that I have mentioned. Number two, he has to work with the right people. And number three, he has to consult us. He has to form a committee in every region so that we can be able to say what kind of diaspora ministry that we would want. Because some people like wearing a dress on an occasion, a borrowed dress. Some people would like to be nominated or to be put in that ministry where they don't even know, they don't even have an idea of what is going on out there. They have never been a community leader. They have never even tried to get somebody out of jail. So he has to work with the right people. Now, about the remittances, if he works with us, well, we are going to remit more. We are going to invest more. Going to explore our avenues. I talked to somebody in Dallas and told me, Mary, I can fix the Nairobi drainage for free. People are ready here to volunteer. People are ready here to volunteer to implement computerized driving. So he has to work with us, and he has to consult us. He has to consult the right people through the embassy. And that way he will be able to work well with the people in diaspora. Thank you very much, Troy. Yep. And I hope that we'll be able to expand more on this topic.
Indeed, indeed. And thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Mary Wachira there, the president of Kenya Diaspora Forum, together with her secretary, who is Maurice Ndole. Maurice in Seattle. And no, Mary Wachira is in Seattle.
Seattle and
Seattle and California.
Dole is in California.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for your comments, and thank you for your dollars. They are working wonders in the Kenyan economy. Good to have you.
Thank you. You have a nice day.
Thank you so much. That have been the diaspora voice in regards to the new government and what they would want, and in specific. Remember, Dr. Ruto talked about a diaspora ministry. Well, we are waiting for the cake to be cut, and they are expectant that one of the expectations is that they will be having their own ministry, because they say they can do a lot for Kenya. Allow me now to reel in my panel of experts. We have Wambui Shadrack, who is an advocate of the High Court and a constitutional lawyer. And also we have Dr. Churchill Saoke, who is a leadership and governance expert and also a lecturer at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. Before we crossed over to the diaspora, we were looking at the Kenyan pockets, and Kenyans are so much expectant. But as Dr. Ruto talked about yesterday, this is not a matter of instant coffee where we just mix and partake. This is going to take time. But looking at what he talked about makes a lot of sense when it comes to subsidies. And he did something extra by, we have the short rains coming. He lowered the cost of fertilizer from 6,500 to about 3,500. And earlier on, we were trying to look at this as being from taking with one hand and giving with the other. Because at the end of the day, if these subsidies go, it means that fuel will, which is a key component in terms of farming, prices are bound to just stay high.
Yes, these are policy choices that any leader has to make.
Delicate balancing act.
It's quite a delicate balancing act. And you know, the question is that what does a country need most? The country needs food. The country needs to be food secure. People need to eat fast before they drive their cars. So if you want to make maybe perhaps the first thing, and this maybe could be what may have informed the head of state's thinking, is that we need to spur up the productivity of our people by ensuring that we provide for them a way in which we can grow the agricultural products, and then these agricultural products become our food. And then once we are able to accelerate our production, that production will then increase our revenue, and the revenue then can then be plowed back into cushioning other consumption aspects, like, you know, the fuel subsidy and things like that. Of course, we are not saying that, we are also privy to the fact that fuel is also needed for agricultural production. But then now, it's now a balance of what will give more and what will impact more. What will give more money and what will impact more in terms of what the people really need. Yeah.
Wakila, and just to remind you is that the judges will be sworn in today. 6 judges are expected to be sworn in today, just as the president talked about yesterday, and we'll be taking a keen look on the names of the judges that we are expecting today to be sworn in. And remember, we will be beaming that live, so keep it KBC. And Wakili, as I see the time is quite running out, we're talking about the delicate balancing act that the head of state has to adhere to ensure that at the end of the day we still have our strong republic and economy, and at the end of the day he has to look at the welfare of Kenyans who are grappling with high cost of living, high cost of fuel.
Well, the prevailing opinion out there is that the cost of living has actually, touched the roofs, and people are finding they are finding their existence in this Republic of Kenya to be very difficult. And it was hoped, and indeed this was the promises that were being made by the president during the campaign period, that he will ensure that we reduce the cost of living moving forward. But he began by ensuring that we have an almost half reduction of the prices of fertilizers, which is something that is quite commendable. In any event, it gives a sort of relief to our farmers. But again, there was some sort of clawback, if you ask me, because on one hand we are reducing the prices of fertilizer, but on the other hand we are removing the fuel subsidy. I know he made a very good argument as far as this convincing or persuading Kenyans that the fuel subsidy that we are currently enjoying is actually becoming burdensome to the Kenyan taxpayer. But even so, you will recognize, as Dr. has recognized, that indeed even the production of of our farmers, or farming in itself, is not entirely dependent on fertilizers. It is also to some extent dependent on fuel. So that if you were to look at a modern day farmer, a modern day farmer will not depend on a djembe. A modern day farmer will probably be depending on machines or equipment. You want to mention, those caterpillars. You want to mention, there are those machines that are ordinarily used by farmers to ensure that they have improved or increased production or productivity in their farms. So by use of fuel, then in a sense it will tell you, because now the fuel prices will go up automatically, then it means the final product, since it is also influenced by fuel, will also increase. So in a sense, if you are to deeply reflect, even though I am not an economist, but if you are to deeply reflect on the implication of the reduction of the fuel, the reduction of the fertilizer, or the prices of fertilizer, vis-a-vis the removal of the fuel subsidy that we've been enjoying, then I think we'll return to the same position where the cost of living will still be as burdensome as we are finding it today. But it's a wait and see. Perhaps what I have argued previously is I mean, if you were to look at the world, because the fuel prices are influenced by what is happening in the world, and we might not really do so much as far as the fuel prices is concerned, probably we should look at empowering the young men and young women and even the Kenyan citizens from the different areas of their areas of production, so that we ensure that we create an enabling environment so that our young men who have been suffering from high unemployment rates get opportunities of employment. People who have been doing their small hustles, we create an environment, probably what the president said, the hustler fund. We ensure that we pump a lot of money, we enable them so well, so that even if we have an increased, prices of commodities, we have an increased living costs, then from what you'll be earning, then you will be able to surmount some of the challenges that you will be experiencing. So that is how I look at it. It is a question of making available opportunities of employment, is a question of making available an enabling environment that will ensure that all of us thrive. We ensure that we cut out all those channels of corruption. We ensure that you do not necessarily have to get like, 10 or 6 licenses for you to trade. So that if you get one, you can as well as be good to begin your business. If we reduce some of these barriers and bulk works that ensure that that give us a lot of difficulties when we want to begin our small and medium enterprises, then I think we will be good to go.
And talking about the SMEs, Dr. you do remember that the head of state campaigned on a hustler narrative, and he even promised the Hustler Fund, which he talked about yesterday. I want to tie this with, at the end of the day, that fund is going to help a lot of youth, if you ask me. And also want to tie it on counties and having their own sources of revenue. This is something that has come out each and every year. Counties are not quite able to generate their own money, and they have to wait for what their share from the national government, which is not always sufficient.
Yes, revenue comes from production. Without production, you cannot be able to regenerate any revenue. So the establishment of a fund like the Hustler Fund, if well implemented, will be able to accelerate more businesses and create entrepreneurial ideas that would then make people across all ages, young and old, to come with businesses that are new enough and that can create newer ways of generating resources for the national government and for the county. Because you see, even for the county government, they mainly get their revenue, apart from the one that comes from the exchequer at the national level, they get their revenue from the ones they collect, by the councils. But then, how can you increase that amount that they collect? You can only increase that if businesses increase. And this is one of the ways in which this fund, if well operationalized, then we can have many people at the grassroots level being able to create more and newer businesses. But then the issue is that it is one thing to create the fund. It's another thing to have the fund bring in and plow back the profits, so that it becomes a revolving fund, as the head of state had alluded to. It needs proper ways of disbursement of the funds, proper ways of ensuring that the funds are well used by the people. We need for a lot of training on business and a lot of training on how to handle some of these small-scale enterprises. Remember that so many of these small-scale enterprises are built on informal sector, and most of these guys who are in the informal sector have no financial literacy. So there's a lot of training that will need to be done beyond just giving the finances. So I think it is a good idea that will help to promote. But then I also think that there is also another aspect that needs to be considered: the question of accelerating innovation into ideas that generate newer businesses. This is how countries that have developed across the world have been able to achieve. Look at Japan, Germany, China. It is about being able to create an entrepreneurial ecosystem where people can be able to think, create business, and once they create business, these businesses come into new ideas that can even help the country to attract foreign investment or attract what we'll call the income that is generated from export. So you have made in Kenya, that is being used in Kenya and is being exported, and that then bringing money into our country.
And indeed, that's what the deputy president, now we don't have elect President Gachagua, was talking about, strengthening and making sure that what we have, we are able to sort our own issues, because looking at the fuel prices, if they jump, we jump as well. When we talk about a lot of imports, just like Venezuela, you saw Venezuela issues came about when they had to import everything, and so it was dependent, and that's how their economy kind of collapsed. And this is something that also the president talked about, gaining our own based solution, including getting our own money to invest to build the economy. 1 minute each as we wrap up.
Well, I think when we focus so much on empowering our people, we need to open them up to new ideas. And by opening them up to new ideas, this I mean that we need to ensure that we provide an easy access to institutions of learning. You see, we've been grappling with problems of our leaders not even, needing or having or possessing some of these degree requirements, or even, basic requirements, so that they can enable us move forward. You saw even the other day when they were taking their oath, some of them were even having difficulties reading what has been written on the paper. So really, I think my parting shot will be is just to encourage the president to ensure that they provide an opportunity of, some of our young men and women, people who are available to learning, to go and attend schools where Daktari is teaching freely, so that we can now get rid of this problem of innovation. Some of us are actually suffering from unemployment because we have refused to be innovative, and the reason we've refused to be innovative is because we've never been exposed to ideas. So the only thing that we know is what we just see or on TVs and everywhere. So I think we are blessing the president as he takes off the reins of power. We wish him well. Let him govern this country with some level of fairness. We should just get rid of those war drums that we were drumming during the campaigns. Let us just focus on improving the livelihoods of the Kenyans who are looking up to him.
Doc, wrap it up.
Yes, I think also mine is also to wish the president and the deputy president well, and also just to implore on Kenyans that, we've come through a grueling campaign period, and, this is a time now for each and every person to rise into statesmanship and patriotism. Someone once said that patriotism is the bond that binds us together and cements us together into a common purpose, and as a nation, that is what should now be the key thing that will steer us into prosperity for the sake of the future generation.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Dr. Churchill Saoke, a leadership and governance expert and also a lecturer. And we also had Wambui Shadrach, who is advocate of the High Court and also a practicing constitutional lawyer. My name is Bentroy Njue. Lensa Odingo has been my colleague on the bottom right of your screen. Of course, a lot we didn't be able to touch because of the time. But this is a conversation that is going to be shaping the country in the next couple of days as we also wait for the announcement of the cabinet secretaries. But today we are waiting for the swearing in of the 6 judges, and we are keeping a keen eye on that. We will be beaming that live, so keep it KBC. Thank you so much for watching. Let's continue this conversation on social media. A lot of your responses, but allow me not to sample them because of interest of time. But I'm giving rise now to Gladys Mungai, who will now take over the mantle in Kurunzi, Mashinani and Tamrini. Thank you so much for watching.
Walimu na wanafunzi mpo. KBC Channel 1 inakutoa darasani na kukuleta jukwani ili upate kuaminika.
Asante Bwana Spika.